Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Craig Hewitt from Castos, joined today by Jacques Hopkins. Jacques, how's it
What's up,
going?
Craig? Happy to be here. I should have refilled my coffee. Look, I'm almost out, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough
Mm.
sledding. Is it early webinar? It's 10 o'clock here on the East Coast, 7 a.m. for you folks on the West Coast. Brave souls. Thanks for joining us. If folks are here joining us live and want to hop into the chat and just say hey and where you are kind of logging in from, that would be great. Love to get a sense for where folks are in the world. Jacques and I are both in the States. I'm in Rhode Island, so I'll say hey from the Ocean State.
Is it the Ocean State? I just thought it was like the
That's
small
it.
state.
Yep. Small state.
I've never
Yep.
been to Rhode Island.
Small
I
but
would like
mighty.
to. If I go, I would like to go in the summer though. I don't want to go in like a cold. I hate being cold. Absolutely hate it.
You definitely don't want to go in the
No.
winter. Yeah, it's pretty miserable. Yeah, it's just getting nice. Like we're gonna have like 65 degrees, which is just like
Yeah.
perfect. So
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, it's gonna be really great starting next week. So cool. So we're gonna give folks a couple minutes to hop in, say hey in the chat, and where you're logging in from today, and then Jacques gonna get started telling us all about online courses. And I think this is like a topic near and dear to my heart. And Jacques, we've been talking about this for years, I guess, as it pertains to my kind of professional life and podcasting and everything. And I know you just have a ton to say on the topic and a lot of really good experiences. So we're gonna dive into some great stuff. I think we'll have about, I don't know, half or 2/3 of our hour today, Jacques sharing the goodness, and then a lot of time for questions. And so I think we both like a lot of questions from everyone on the call or on the line today. So as y'all have questions, you can pop in and ask those questions in the right sidebar, and we'll kind of answer those as we go along.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I love just keeping it super casual and seeing what people want to talk about as well. About half the time I do these things, it's like this, where it's just like we're more business focused, and the other half, like it's more I'm teaching piano, so I'm like I have to like compartmentalize that. It's like which mindset do I need to be in right now? Am I teaching these people piano right now, or are we talking about online business? So sometimes I'll just like do this and. Because I get confused, but this I probably enjoy more, this business stuff. So I'm excited, and I'm excited you're here too, Craig, to chat about it too as we go through it.
Yeah, I think we were talking as we hopped on. I think there's probably generally two groups of folks that I see really kind of wanting to tune into this kind of content. One is people that have content, have an audience, and have a topic they really like talking about, but they haven't monetized it yet. And a course is a really good way to do that. And I'm probably stealing your thunder a little bit. And the other is like have a course already, but it's kind of lackluster, and I'm not really meeting the goals that I have for myself with my course and my business. And I think looking at how to kind of level those folks up is something we can look at. But
yeah, I mean, you look at what
Isaac
just said. You know, he said, "I don't have a course, but I'm strongly considering or planning for one. I'm not sure if this venue is appropriate for me." I mean, the follow up is to your point, Craig. Like, what do you have, Isaac? Do you have a podcast? You know, what do you have a platform of any sort already? And are you looking to possibly monetize it with a course, or are you starting completely from scratch?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow, everything, big following.
Awesome. That's a great launching point. From my experience and work with a bunch of other creators, like that's the hard part, and then the rest is easy from there, I think. But Jacques, I'll let you take it away, man. We're about 5 minutes after the hour, so we'll let you kind of dive in and yeah, folks listening live, like if y'all have questions, please chime in the chat, and we'll answer those as we go. This will be recorded, and everyone who registered will get a copy of the recording a couple hours after we finish up today.
Sounds good. I'm gonna share my screen. I've got a slide deck, but I don't plan for this to be like super rigid or super presentation-y, if that's even a word. So we'll rock and roll here. I'll share with what I've got presented, but we can also go in various offshoot directions and whatnot. But we're calling this how to increase profits from your online course business. And I'm Jacques Hopkins. I created my course starting back in 2013, Piano in 21 Days. And I host a podcast all about online courses as well for the past 5 years. But you are here, and hopefully you're in the right place. Who is this for? Course creators. If you have a course, does anybody have courses already? You know, we talked about Isaac, who mentioned he doesn't have a course, but he's got everything else. So if you're a course creator looking to, you know, increase profits, if you're looking to scale, simplify, automate, outsource, you know, improve your core online course business, then you'd be in the right place. Or if you're, you know, an aspiring course creator who want to get started in online courses the right way, right? And really that category kind of would break down into 2 subcategories. Like I was asking Isaac, you know, do you have a platform or audience already, or do you not? Because that's, like Craig said, that's probably the hardest part of all this, is building that loyal following who wants to buy things from you. And of course, is a phenomenal way to serve that audience. So those are this is who this would be for. Quickly, you know, a little about me, and then we'll rock and roll. I live in South Louisiana here, married, two girls, 4 and 6. Like I said, I started Piano in 21 Days back in 2013. There's a screenshot of the website. We've done over $3 million in sales from the piano course, but it was not an overnight success. Lots and lots of struggle. Most of that revenue is more recently than early on. And I host the online course show. We started that in 2017, and I started that podcast, and that's how I, you know, first got introduced to Craig, because I was using Castos, or I don't know if it was even called Castos at the time, but we started using some of his software and whatnot for that podcast. And I didn't really know what direction I was going with that podcast. I just knew I wanted to talk about this stuff and not just piano. And so I, you know, interviewed other successful course creators, and I have solo episodes too. And it's just everything to do with online courses. And it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I struggled with my course business for years. What I did was, when I got the idea in early 2013 for an online piano course, I was working full-time as an electrical engineer. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to make the course, right? That's what I need to do. I need to make the course. So I built a course, and it took me like 8 months. I had no clue what I was doing. The landscape of tools and things was completely different. I mean, this is 9 years ago now. And things like having course content in a password protected area, like that, it's embarrassing how much time that took me trying to figure out how to do that, right? When today you can sign up for just like Kajabi or Teachable, and it's like super easy. So I built the course. I launched it later that year, and the first day, like, I made no sales, and it was very slow going. It did not work at first. So I'm like, okay, what's the next step, right? If you build it, they will come. No, right? I was like, oh yeah, well, if I launch a course, I've got to actually have eyeballs on it and an audience to buy it, which, you know, I developed the course for 8 months and didn't realize that. So after the fact, I started trying to drive traffic with my YouTube channel. You know, at the time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and things on marketing and online business. And for the most part, you would just hear the like raging success stories. Like, oh yeah, you know, I had this idea for this course, I launch it, and I, you know, 3 hours later, I had $6.2 million in my bank account, right? So those are the only stories I was hearing. So I was like, okay, well, if I build an online course, then I'm going to be like that too. And in, you know, a couple months, I'll be a millionaire. But that's just not the reality. And so I wasn't doing everything right. I wasn't even doing everything I should be doing, right? I wasn't even driving much traffic. And so I started to focus on driving traffic, primarily with YouTube for that particular niche of piano, you know, being on camera, teaching lessons, and so on. So I started driving traffic. Still not much traction. And I was talking to somebody who I trusted, and he's like, well, have you, you know, the few people that you have had purchased the course, have you talked to them? Have you found out if they're enjoying it? Have you gotten any testimonials? I was like, no. That sounds like a really good idea, though. So I asked, I actually talked talked to the very few students that had purchased my course and got feedback from them. I actually made a new version of the course based on their feedback. I got some testimonials from them, which was great. But it still was not working. It still was not doing what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to replace or exceed my income as an engineer so that I could quit and whatnot. But I was stuck at about $1,000 a month, about 3 or so course sales a month, and that was it. And I wanted 30, I wanted 100 course sales a month, and fortunately, my wife and I set things up to where even though I was only making about $1,000 a month for my course, I quit my job at the end of 2015. We had our first daughter was about 6 months old. My wife had stopped working when she was born. So this was all the money we were bringing in, but we had some savings. We could live very frugally for a year. And then worst case, I'd have to go back to work, find a job or whatever. And so I was still making $1,000 a month. I could not figure out what to do. And it was like October of that year. It was getting dicey. I was still making $1,000 a month. And my daughter, who was, I guess, about a year old at the time or a little over, comes to me one evening with a book. She's like, "Hey, will you read this book?" She was like 1, so she probably didn't say it just like that. But it was clear she wanted me to read her a book. And she sat down with me, and the book was Little Miss Big Sis. And I read like a page, and then I looked at my wife. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're pregnant?" And she was like, "Yeah." So like, I mean, it's amazing. Like we weren't really really trying. It wasn't really a great time. But and so my first thought is like, well, there it goes. I got to go back to work. We need a bigger car. We need a bigger house. This thing has not worked. So I literally, that night I started looking for job opportunities, and even had a couple of interviews. But as just good fortune would have it, that's around the exact time I kind of figured out the missing piece to what I needed to find success. And that for me, that was a funnel. I didn't have a funnel. I didn't know what a funnel was. It's kind of embarrassing how long I was in business. And so I was just like sending traffic to a page that just like had a buy now button basically, but there was nothing in between that just like built trust and rapport and just like led people along, giving them value and so on, and trying to lead them to the sale, but not being very salesy. I didn't have any of that. And so I learned about them and I implemented one, and I left everything else the same in my business. I had the same traffic, I had the same course, I had the same testimonials and everything. I dropped in a funnel, a good funnel, for the first time. And like pretty much overnight, that 1K a month went to 10K a month. We 10x'd and everything started working. And that's when I knew I didn't need to go back to work.
Hey, Jacques, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. We had a question from Gary about like, where did you release the course? And like, to me, that's a really interesting question. I think the similar one is like, can you give a sense of like scope of the audience or the traffic or whatever you had at this point where you were doing $1,000 a month and then were able to really kind of ramp it up with this funnel? If that's the next slide, I apologize.
No, it's not. I mean, as far as the tech goes, like originally I used like WooCommerce with, they had a plugin or an add-on called Sensei, which was for courses. I didn't like it. I then moved over to something called Optimize Press, which was also WordPress. In 2016, I moved to ClickFunnels. And more recently, I've moved off of ClickFunnels to something more custom. But early on, it was basically a WordPress solution. And all of my traffic was coming from YouTube. It wasn't a ton of traffic, but as far as numbers go, it was so long ago, I don't even know.
Yeah,
but I liked.
Not huge though, right? To say.
Yeah, and Isaac says, "Can we hear more about this funnel? Sounds interesting." Yeah, I mean, we're going to get there. That's coming up very, very shortly. But the point is, like, I like to look at this stuff. Those like hanging like suspension pedestrian bridges with these like wood planks, where you can walk across that connects you from one place to another. It can be a little dicey at times, but I like to look at an online course business, a successful one, as a bridge like this. And sometimes we don't realize if one of these planks is missing, or just like not the right kind of plank to be able to successfully cross over and walk across this bridge. And so for me in my business, I was missing pieces, and the last plank for me was that really good funnel. And once I put that in, my bridge was finally complete. But that doesn't mean that's like the one main secret to a successful online course business. As I have people on the online course show, other people will be like, yeah, I struggled, and for me, I finally learned about copywriting, and that was it. That was what made it successful. Or for me, I learned about podcasting, and that just made everything work. And so, sometimes people will hear those stories and it's like, oh yeah, that's what I need too. But it's there's a bigger picture there. We need all these components in place and done basically the right way to have this full and complete bridge. So that's what we're talking about today. Is at its core, what I found is there's 4 main components that every successful online course business should have. I've got my course, Piano in 21 Days. It wouldn't be fair for me to say, hey, look, because all of these things have worked for my one little business, it'll work for you. So this is a culmination of not only my experience, but I've had the fortune of talking to like hundreds of successful course creators with my podcast. And so, you start to notice trends, threads, commonalities of what makes an online course business successful. So that's what we're talking about today. So at its core, the 4 components every successful online course business should have: traffic, right? We talked about that. You gotta have an audience. You gotta have traffic. You gotta have eyeballs on your stuff. My opinion, you should have a funnel. That's the big piece I was missing. You gotta have a course. Obviously, that's the product, and you got to have people that are actually succeeding with your course, and hopefully generating testimonials. So how do those 4 components interact with each other, which is probably even more important, right? So traffic flows into our funnel, and then our funnel takes that traffic and hopefully converts them into a purchaser. That's the goal with the funnel. And so they enter your course, they start taking your course, and ideally that course generates successful students and testimonials. And then we can take that and bring that back in and use those testimonials in our funnels and our traffic. All right. So that's how they all interact with each other. So what I'd like to share with you next is like my top just like secrets within those 4 components, right? So 4 secrets. It's kind of, I don't know, that word secret is always like, should I use that word or not? Like, is it too like markety or whatever? But so the first thing relates to traffic, how to generate consistent, predictable traffic into your online course without paid ads. So we'll talk about that. And that relates to the traffic piece. Secret 2, the highest converting funnel. Here we go, Isaac, the funnel for online course businesses and how to build it. So that's the funnel piece we'll get into. Where most people fail with the course itself, and what to include with your course, such as a private podcast, right? Got to tie this back into Castos. Craig will kick me off if we don't talk about podcasting. And so there's the course piece. We'll talk about that. And then the 4th piece, why there's a 1 next to 4, I have no idea, but how to generate testimonials that help grow the business for you. So that's that bottom piece there as well. So let's get into it. Those are the 4 secrets behind these 4 components that we're going to be talking about. All right. So let's first talk about traffic. I'm not a big paid ads person. I follow a lot of gurus. I try to learn and get, take the best advice, apply things, test them, whatnot. One person I've always respected is Sam Ovens. He's a big, marketing guy. He runs consulting.com. He's always been a really big, just like paid ads guy. And a lot of people go to him just to learn about, Facebook ads or whatever. And he released a video recently I thought was fascinating. He was talking about kind of organic traffic versus paid traffic. And he's like, I think we're going to basically stop doing ads. He's like, when we turn off ads, the traffic stops. But we have this YouTube channel and we haven't made a video in 2 years. We stopped 2 years ago and we're still getting tons of leads through the YouTube channel. So I think we're just going to double down on the traffic source that doesn't really stop when we stop, right? So I thought that was fascinating coming from a big ads guy. And so, yeah, I run some ads, but I prefer more like just content marketing strategies. I think it's an overall better way to go, especially if you're starting out and you've got to pick a route. You could end up wasting a lot of money with paid ads. And that's also the trend that I've noticed from the people I've had on the online course show is the way they typically generate traffic for the most part is they're on one platform, YouTube, they have a podcast, something like that. They're producing content and they're consistent about it. And that's what builds their audience and drives traffic to wherever they want to drive it to. Hopefully a funnel that converts people into a course. So a few examples here. Here's David Walliman, who teaches guitar, and he is his only traffic source is YouTube. And he, for the past like 12 years, has released 2 to 3 new videos a week on YouTube, and that he's running a mid 5-figure a month online course business on the backbones of traffic from a YouTube channel. But he puts out high quality content. He's consistent about it, and he's not all over the place either. He really leans into YouTube. I think podcasting is a phenomenal place to go here. Podcasting is not what I chose for Piano in 21 Days because like I said earlier, like it's good to see me on camera with my keyboard. Now I know there is like video podcasting or whatnot, but if it's not necessary for your particular niche, which most are not that way, where you're interacting with something physical, then a podcast can be amazing. And that's the route I went with my second business, which is called The Online Course Guy, onlinecourseguy.com. And the podcast is just called The Online Course Show. And like I said earlier, I didn't really know what direction I was going to go with it, but I knew I wanted to build an audience, on one platform, and I chose podcasting. And there's, I've been on a lot of different platforms, and podcasting I've found is just like the most intimate. Like people really, really get to know you and trust you. And just like the overall conversion rate, if you will, from like quantity of listeners to people that might actually buy you, I feel like is insanely high because of that just intimate environment with podcasting. I mean, Craig, I know you're obviously a fan of podcasts. Do you see that too? Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that probably as it relates to courses, intimate is the word we use a lot, and I think it's for some people like a weird word to use in a businessy kind of context. But I do agree that like what you're doing is proving your ability to help people get from where they are now to where they want to be in the future. And that's really what a course is, right? Is you're selling, hey, I can take you from your current reality to your desired reality, which is be able to play piano or guitar or underwater basket weaving or building an online course. And you're able to show that so much more richly than any other medium. And I would argue even video, and certainly more than blogging or email. I know that like all of those tie together. And I think that probably is part of what you'll talk about is like all these media tie together in your funnel. But yeah, I think that's the reason is people have a lot more confidence in you because they hear you talk for 30 minutes every week, as opposed to just read a bunch of text.
Yes, it's really amazing. I have a higher ticket coaching program that I jump on a Zoom call with people to make sure they're fit before they come in, and more often than not, people are just like I don't know, like intimidated or just like blown away. They're actually talking to me, which like blows me away every time because like I am so just a regular person, like chill out. But it's like they have been listening to me for a long time typically, and just like they know so much about me, and I'm meeting them for the first time, and it's just like such a great way for people to really, really get to know you as long as you're doing it in a good and authentic way. And I haven't gotten that same reaction from any other platform, even though I love YouTube, and that's the backbone of my other business. But this isn't the only way either. I've seen very successful course businesses that rely on, say, a blog for their traffic. Here's an example: Michelle Schroeder Gardner, makingsenseofsense.com, who, her main traffic source is a blog, and she's put out consistent content. And when it came time for her to launch a course about personal finance, she released it to her blog readers and has been very, very successful with that. And I've even seen people succeed with their main platform just being Instagram. Here's a guy, Lane Johnson, who's an artist. And I mean, how's this for a niche? Not only does he teach painting, but he's niched down so far that all he teaches is painting clouds. And he built up this massive audience on Instagram. And that's where he announced his course and has been very, very successful. I saw that Isaac asked, does it have to be either or? Like choose only YouTube or podcasts? That's a good question. I think one of the big mistakes I see, especially with beginners, is trying to be everywhere. I think being everywhere is not a bad thing, but it's like, I prefer you add one at a time, right? Start with a podcast, really nail that down to where you are putting out consistent content. You kind of have a system in place to where that's not going to break down once you add another, traffic source, channel, and so on. So it can be overwhelming, especially for beginners, to try to be in too many places at once. That's just what I've seen.
Hey, Jacques, I want to kind of reiterate something there because I think this is one of the most important things that we talk with our kind of like concierge launch customers about, is that consistency is more important than anything. And I would even argue more important than the quality of work that you put out is to consistently put it out, because the quality will continue to improve. But if you're not consistent, what happens from my perspective and talking to other podcasters that have suffered from this or have not, is when you're not consistent, then your audience doesn't take you seriously, right? If you show up for 10 episodes and then skip 2 months and then randomly come back for 2 weeks and then take 3 weeks off, and your audience is like, what the heck is going on with Jacques? Like, he just must not take this podcast seriously because he's not putting in the work to give me what I want. I'm going to go find another show to listen to. And I think that's the so what of consistently putting out whatever kind of content it is. It could be blog posts or Instagram or YouTube videos or podcast episodes. It doesn't matter as long as you show up, I think. I would maybe qualify that and maybe ask you this if you agree. I think there is a lot of alignment between the channel that you use, podcasting or YouTube or Instagram, and the thing you're teaching.
Yes.
Like I think for the painter, Instagram makes a ton of sense. My wife follows a bunch of these folks and only does it on Instagram. And she reads a lot of blogs like, home improvement or whatever. And they're all blogs because that's the right medium for that message.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I've started 2 businesses and I chose a different main platform for each one that was more appropriate for that particular business. Did you see Matt's comment?
With the consistency. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And sometimes, and this ties into Gary's comment we'll get to next, is like when you don't have the numbers yet, it's easier to make the excuse that you're not gonna, release a podcast or release a YouTube video this week. It's like, well, who's gonna watch it anyway? Who's gonna listen to it anyway? And I don't think that's the right mindset to have. I think if you're going to go down this route and you haven't really built an audience yet, you probably should start there rather than, build the course first like I did. That way you can truly figure out who you're serving. I mean, for me, like I just, I was in my late 20s when I launched, and I just assumed it would be people similar age to me that would be interested in what I had to offer. But as it turned out, like my sweet spot is people 60 years old and older, right? I had no idea until the market actually told me that. So sometimes you don't really know exactly how you can serve people until you start putting content out there. But that is certainly a common issue and question is like, okay, look, I'm with you. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a YouTube channel. But look, I've been doing this for 4, 5, 6 months consistently even, but just the numbers aren't there. Using using Gary's terminology, what's the deal? And for that, I would say, especially if you're new, it really takes time to figure out your voice and get your rhythm and do things well. I mean, go back and listen to my first podcast episode. It is so bad. Like I was using the wrong microphone, so the audio quality is horrible. And then I wasn't confident. It's bad. It was so bad. I left it up, but I put a disclaimer at the beginning now. And so because people will find the podcast and go back to that first episode, which was 2017. And so now there's a disclaimer. Hey, look, this is Jacques from 2022. Listen to this episode, but this is not my best work. I was using the wrong microphone, all that. But it can take time to really figure out how to do this and find your voice. And so would you rather people really start finding you before or after you've really gotten into a groove and really found your voice? I know for me, it took at least a year for any sort of volume to accumulate on my podcast. And I'm kind of thankful for that, because if people would have found me early on, they probably wouldn't have stuck around, So stick with it until you find your voice. It would be my advice there. So just to kind of sum it up, I would say pick one platform in general, unless, like Isaac, you're on multiple platforms already, so this doesn't necessarily apply. But if you're not on anywhere, pick one and stick to that consistent posting platform. So just to recap from what I've seen, people on the podcast, the top platforms for driving traffic for online course businesses: YouTube, podcast, blog, Instagram. I'm working with a girl right now whose only traffic source is TikTok, and she's absolutely killing it. So I haven't figured out TikTok yet, but that's pretty cool too. So let's move forward to talk a little bit about funnel, the highest converting funnel for online course businesses and how to build it. That's the funnel piece. Really quickly, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about what a funnel actually is. In my opinion, my definition of a funnel is it's a combination of web pages, videos, and emails. So it's three things: web pages, videos, and emails that builds trust and rapport with your potential customer, and leads them to a sale in a non-salesy way. All right. So this is the piece that I was missing. I didn't have really anything or very little that was building trust and rapport with my potential customer and leading them to a sale in a non-salesy way. And so there's lots of types of funnels. I was listening to a podcast one day years ago, Smart Passive Income. And this particular episode, 136, was the one where I first really understood funnels and that's when I implemented that funnel in late 2016, based on listening to this podcast. Pat Flynn had on a guy named David Simon Garland.
I totally listened to that episode and joined that webinar. Like, it's funny, we're in the same boat.
Yeah. Look, I didn't even buy David Simon Garland's course. I may have listened to the webinar, but he gave a ton of value on that podcast, and I'm just like, man, this could be the missing piece right here, and it was, for sure. Isaac said, I learned everything from SPI, also a real pioneer. Yes, like one of my crowning achievements in business was appearing on the Smart Passive Income podcast. That was like the pinnacle. Well, other than this, being invited on a webinar with Craig Hewitt. But yeah, I think about a year ago or so, I was on SPI. But the funnel that I see working most often for online courses, it's not the only one, but it's a fairly simple evergreen webinar funnel. It's amazing how many really successful businesses use this, and it's just like the backbone of what they do. Let me skip a few slides and show you some examples. Like the virtualsavvy.com, if you go there, like Abby Ashley she's just an incredible businesswoman, and she teaches virtual or stay-at-home moms to become virtual assistants, to start a virtual assistant business. She did $3.8 million in online courses last year. And her funnel is what I'm about to show you, an evergreen webinar funnel. Microgreensfarmer.com, Nate Dotson teaches people to grow and sell microgreens. They're these baby versions of plants that are super nutritious. Chefs put them on like food to make them fancier. People put them in in smoothies and whatnot. Tim Shields teaches photography. Caitlin Pyle at proofreadanywhere.com. All of these people are doing 7 figures a year in online courses. They've all been on the podcast, and they all use the Evergreen webinar funnel. So if you want to see examples, you can go to those sites. You can check it out. It can be very effective when done right. So like I said, a funnel is just at its core, what is it? It's a combination of videos, web pages, and emails. So what are those? Well, in general, there's no one exact way to do this, but if you're going to try to set it up, here's the emails I recommend. I recommend 4 pages, and then you need a webinar video, right? So list out, the things you need to create and start creating them one at a time. And so taking all this and kind of, I'm very visual, so I like looking at it this way. So somebody comes, from that traffic source over to your site or your landing page or opt-in page or whatever. Day 0, we're trying to get them to opt in. Probably you're just going to pitch the webinar. I typically like to call it a workshop. That feels a little less salesy than a webinar. So you can just say like free training, here's what you're going to learn. Here's the 3 secrets you're going to learn, kind of like this presentation here. So you have to have an opt-in page, and then they'll get a welcome email. That email too says everything okay. I love doing that, in any funnel I make, because there are things that you can put in an email that will cause the email not to go to somebody's inbox and go to their spam or promotions. And sometimes you don't even realize what those things are. I mean, even including a link will lower the likelihood that it's going to end up in somebody's inbox. Images, lots of just like consecutive question marks or emojis. And so I send that second email to anybody that didn't actually open the first email. That's just like bare bones, like not rocking the boat at all, no links, so that if the first one they didn't get, they'll probably get the second one and hopefully go find the first one and mark it not spam or whatever. On day 1, we remind them to go to the workshop. But then from day 2 through 5, like if they haven't watched the workshop, we're going to move on and try to sell them via sales page. And so kind of send an email a day. On the last day of the offer, send 2 emails there. You see email 7 and 8. And by the way, this says like closes tonight. On day 2, it says enrollment open. The availability of the course isn't the only way you can do scarcity. There's really 3 main ways to do scarcity. And I highly encourage you to use some sort of scarcity. That's very important. That's one of the reasons that dropping in a funnel back in 2016 10x'd my course, was because I also had scarcity for the first time. But the 3 main ways you can do scarcity is the availability. Hey, look, this is going away. 2 is a discount. Hey, look, it's going to be available, but this discount is going away. And 3 is maybe a bonus of some sort goes away. But you want to have some sort of scarcity. And then, after day 5, for example, you see that close page on day 6 plus, if you do things ethically in the right way, you say things are going away, make sure it actually goes away and it redirects to a close page. I use software called Deadline Funnel to be able to do that right every time. And then there's one more email that not a lot of people do that's very, very effective, is a couple of days after your scarcity thing ends, send one more email asking why they didn't take you up on your offer. For those that didn't buy or unsubscribe, the subject I send out is "you didn't enroll?" ? And then in the body, it's just like, hey, look, a lot of people took me up on my offer, but I noticed you didn't. If you could just reply and let me know, was it a money thing? Was there something else? And you get some really awesome feedback from people that way. So once again, there's the kind of emails, pages, and videos at its most basic level you could set up. There's an example of my opt-in page for the webinar. There's my webinar watch page. I don't use any sort of fancy Evergreen webinar software. I'm not pretending it's live. There's no fake chat or anything like this. It's an on-demand webinar. I used to do the fancy software, and my webinar converted about 5%. I switched to this, much simpler, on demand, and it converts about 7%. There's an example of sales page, and there's an example of a close page. Somebody named Craig Hewitt is asking, is there one type of scarcity that you feel works best? I think it's niche dependent, but lately I've been loving the discount. I did the availability for really years, but it always felt a little, what's the word? What's the opposite of genuine? Disingenuous. Because it's an online course, right? Like people know it's available, like technically, right? It's not like I have 100 shirts and like when that runs out, there's no more shirts physically, right? So about 6 months ago, I did an experiment testing out using a discount instead. And that has actually worked slightly better, and I feel better about it too. So lately, I've been a big fan of using a discount as the scarcity. So you can go to pianoin21days.com and you can click on enroll, and you can enroll at the full price. And being able to do that is something that you haven't been able to do until about 6 months ago. And you could only buy it in the funnel. But now the funnel is trying to get you to buy it at the discount. So anything else on funnel before we talk about the course?
I think it's really cool to hear you walk through it. I mean, I've seen a lot of funnels as like a consumer and things like the Smart Passive Income podcast and hearing folks talk about it, but I've not had someone talk through it kind of real time with me before. So it's really cool to see.
Cool. Yeah. In fact, I have, I was going over with my group coaching people yesterday. I just happen to have this on my desk still. I was going to look, these are really the 6 funnels I see for courses, right? I put Evergreen webinar at the top. Can you see this, Craig?
Yep.
I won't spend a lot of time on this, but there's also product launch formula funnels, which is, you can look up the book Launch by Jeff Walker. He invented that type of funnel. I also see a combination of Evergreen webinar plus PLF. So that's what 3 is, work. This one's actually working really well too, is promoting just like a free course. Maybe it's the first few lessons of your course or something. So free course funnel. This is a very simple funnel, video sales letter. It's basically a sales page with a video with not much else. I usually don't recommend that one, but I have seen it work. Typically, this works when people have ridiculously high traffic, just ridiculously high, and they're almost being lazy about it because they're like, well, I don't need one of these fancy funnels because it's working. Well, it's working because you're super popular, and people do just come to a sales page and buy. And then selling on the phone still works too. I used to do that actually. I've done 500 phone calls with people selling them my piano course, and it was an awesome experience. Okay, how are we doing on time, Craig?
Yeah, we're good. We have about 15 minutes left, so I think we should be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the course itself a little bit. Where most people fail with the course itself, what to include with your course, such as a private podcast. I think the biggest thing, the biggest failure people make with the course itself is just leaving steps out. Like we've got to include every step, and we've got to think of things as if you really want to be successful, you really want to sell, we've got to think about selling a transformation and not just information, right? The best way to think about this is, if I can get my little diagram up. So this is the course piece, transformation. Think about your ideal customer, what their day looks like, what their situation looks like pre your course, right? Going into your course. What are their problems? What are they trying to solve? And what do you want them to look like once they've finished your program? What is that transformation? And then you've got to think about what are the exact steps to take them from A to B and not leave anything out. And that's how we start to make a course that helps transform somebody from, for example, somebody that doesn't know how to play piano and doesn't really think they can play piano, to somebody that's actually playing songs on the piano and enjoying it and not struggling with it. So that's the course itself. But then typically you want to include like bonuses. You want to include extra stuff with your course. The best way to think about, okay, I'm going to have this main like flagship course I'm going to include. What can I include with it as well? You want to think about, all right, is there anything that somebody would need in addition to this at the beginning, middle, or end of the course, right? is there any still any barriers to them at the beginning, right? That I could include along with this, or once they finish the course, is there another course that I can include that they could go into next, or in the middle while they're going through the course, what could I include to make their experience better, to help with that transformation, to ensure even more their success. Most of your bonuses will probably fall in that middle. For example, here's some things you could include, but I think an audio component private podcast can work really well. I've seen that with multiple people. I've seen both just taking the course content and like downloading the audio and turning that into a private podcast as included with the course, so that people can consume the course videos like maybe at their computer, but when they're on the run, they can also consume or review from their phone or in their headphones. Or there can be just exclusive content that's not just a duplicate of the course, whether it's interviews or just supplemental material with a private podcast. I'm guessing, Craig, you have seen this as well.
Yeah, I think the place we see it most often right now, and like big disclaimer, like this is really new stuff. Like this didn't exist a year and a half ago, like at all. Like the technology for it didn't really exist like very long ago, and so I think it's really new. And I think it's a great opportunity for folks to offer unique value that other courses in their niche don't offer. So I think it's a great way to stand kind of apart and above from your competition. Repurposing like ongoing calls is another big one. We have kind of dozens of customers in like the weight loss and fitness kind of space, and that is more of like course plus ongoing community a lot of times. And so they have these like weekly accountability calls. They'll record them, repurpose those as podcast episodes. Another interesting one we see is like AMA style sessions, where again, like a lot of courses typically have a community. And Jacques, this is something I want to talk about later, maybe. They'll go through and answer questions that were posed in the community as podcast episodes, and have that kind of be an AMA style thing. So if you have a Facebook group or something like that, then you can go through and answer questions that were posed in there, and that's only available to like a subset of the audience that's paid in a certain tier or something like that. That's how we see a lot of this. For creating additional content, I think the repurposing of video content into audio is kind of baseline.
Cool. I love that. That's I hadn't thought of like the kind of the Q&A thing. Like I certainly do like Q&As with various programs that I do. I could take those recordings and put those in a private podcast. I like the thought of that. All right, so let's keep rolling. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions and other things. So the last piece here was the kind of the student success and testimonials. A lot of people like they don't have as many testimonials as they probably should, or as many good testimonials, or they just have one type of testimonial like text instead of videos, and a combination is really good. The biggest thing is that's the piece here. We're big on testimonials. Like having our customers talk about the program is like one of the best ways we can convince somebody that they're a good fit. So we rely on that very heavily, and we love video testimonials because it's very important for our customers to see people actually playing piano, on video, and not just talking about it through text. But the biggest thing is asking. Testimonials is really a numbers game, right? So if you go out and you ask 2 people for a testimonial, probably going to get 0, right? But you need to go ask 20 people to maybe get 2 or 3, or ask 50 people to get 5 or 10. It's really a numbers game. So the biggest thing is people aren't asking enough. What we do is we on a month in after they've signed up, we send this email, which is super casual. Hey, look, it's been about a month since you signed up. Have you, tell me how it's going. Have you not even logged in yet? Did you log in a couple of times, but so far life's just gotten in the way? Have you made some progress, but got hung up on a certain topic? Have you made it through the course, hired an agent, now touring with Adele? Whatever it is, let me know. So this is super casual. A lot of people reply to this, and it starts opening the door to the conversation for, if they're close to finish or finished, like, oh, well, look, maybe Maybe you provide a testimonial. It just gets that ball rolling. And then 3 months in, it's a little more official. We give them a survey. One of the questions is, hey, would you be willing to leave a written testimonial? Would you be willing to leave a video testimonial? And then sometimes when it's a really good fit, we'll actually interview. We'll schedule like a 30-minute Zoom and interview somebody, which is like a long form testimonial almost. But then you can also chop that up and turn that into a shorter testimony as well. So remember, it's a numbers game for testimonials. So there's a recap of, the 4 secrets, the 4 components. That's it. Once again, my podcast is the Online Course Show. Invite you to come check that out for sure. And let's chat a little bit with the time we have left.
So Sally has a question here. How did you determine the price for each offering? I'd love to hear this, and I have a couple of follow-up questions. So Jacques, at this point, how do you think about pricing for your courses?
Yeah, you just pick a random number. No, pricing can be tough. I mean, when I first got the idea for my piano course, I was telling my wife about it, back in 2013. She was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Like, how much would you charge for that? And I was like, babe, I don't know. Like, I was thinking maybe like $297. And she looked at me like I was so dumb. She was like, who is going to pay that for that? Like she didn't get it. But, it sold at $297 for years. And then now I've got it as the full price is $997. And inside the funnel, there's a $200 discount. So people are paying a good amount of money for quote unquote piano lessons, but it's, you got to sell the outcome and transformation, not the features, right? People don't pay money for piano lessons. They don't pay much money. They pay money for the ability to play piano, right? So if you really hit that hard, you can charge a lot more money, right? If you think of the outcome and the transformation. So I like charging a higher price in general, like being at the top of the market, because it's like the same amount of work either way. So you might as well maximize how much money you're getting. But also if let's say that you could sell 100 copies of a $100 course, or you could sell 10 copies of a $1,000 course. So it's the same amount of money, but then it's so much easier to serve 10 students than 100, right? So I always just err on the side of more, but then there's certainly limits. You can't just charge unlimited amounts. And so then you've got to start thinking, am I teaching people to make money or not, right? With piano, I'm not teaching people to make money. It's a hobby course. And so I really don't think I could get more than 1,000, which is pushing it. But if I'm teaching people to like start a business or just like start a side hustle, increase traffic to their business, like something that's going to make them money, you can charge $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 in that range.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add there other than I would probably experiment with multiple options. Good, better, best, bronze, silver, platinum, and have different kind of features or bundling in each of those. A live call with you once a quarter, extra downloadable goodies, things like that, I think are things I see in packages. I don't know if Jacques, you probably tested that, and I don't know if it works or not.
I love 2 options personally. What I love to do is say, okay, look, at the bottom end here, you can buy like just the course. But if you want to bump up to this premium package, you'll get the course plus the bonuses, right? And that is actually what we do. We have the bottom end is $497, the top end is $997. And because some people like either, they're more frugal, they don't want to spend the extra money, or they just don't feel like they need the extra stuff, which is cool. And so I want to serve them too.
Cool. So we have this question from Isaac around hiring someone to assist in building a course. I'm not sure how much experience you have with that.
For example, I know a studio that said they would charge me $5,000, but that includes them doing professional videography, good photos, polished website, etc. All I do is show up with my info. I'm not a newbie when it comes to tech, but I really don't know how to film professional looking videos. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a pretty reasonable price if they're going to do all that, if they're going to do it well. To assist, so hiring somebody to assist in building a course, like all the things that they're promising you, like it's pretty vague, right? Because it's like, are they just making the videos? Are they taking those videos and then uploading them to Kajabi or Teachable or Thinkific? Are they doing that and building you a funnel and building you, like, what is their scope, right? For me, I film all the videos myself because I mean, it took me a long time to figure out, but I've got a pretty good camera setup now. But then I just record raw footage and then have a video editor produce everything, and then an assistant take those and just like upload them and make the course look good. So, I mean, if they're promising all those things, $5,000 is a pretty good price. I mean, having a videographer come in and do filming, I mean, those guys are like $200 an hour in the States, good ones anyway. So I'm a big fan of outsourcing for sure, but don't outsource like your content. And it doesn't sound like you would, right? You said I would only come in with the info, which is good. So yeah, I'm for it, especially somebody like you that's clearly like making money already, has an established business already.
So Isaac also has a question about easier to serve 10 people versus 100. How much interaction do you have with the customers on the course? Yeah. Do you hop on calls, or do you have like an accountability group? Like what does that typically look like for you?
I thought it was a hands-off thing where you just kind of drop off your course and that's basically it. Well, it can be. It absolutely can be. The problem is that the success rate on courses like that are far lower, right? So it depends on what your goals are. If you really, I mean, how many books do you have that you never read? How many courses have you bought that maybe haven't gone through? I know for me, both answers are fairly high. And so you can do courses in the complete passive income way. And I wouldn't judge you for that. That's great. But just know that you're not going to have near the impact on other people as you could if you provided a weekly Q&A, if you said, hey, look, you can email me anytime you want if you sign up, if you provide a place to leave comments and questions under each lesson. This is really important for us. So like a couple years ago, I was like, all right, what's the most important part of my business? Well, it's successful students. So I literally hired a person and put her completely in charge of that. We have a student success manager, which, as the business owner, I've got to worry about the marketing and the sales and the tech and make sure the website doesn't go down and the accounting and I have so many hats I have to wear. And so, yes, I'm worried about student success, but I was neglecting people. So we hired somebody and that's her job. Please help make these students as successful as possible. So that's a way to bring it back to the more passive route when you have a good team behind you. And that's been really great having her be responsible for that. Because we want everybody that signs up for a course to reach their goals. And we're going to pester the hell out of you until you're successful on how we can best help you.
I think for me, like you're spot on. And for me, this comes back a lot of times to community and accountability. Mm-hmm. We have free courses, here at Castos, and community is a huge thing. And we are working very hard to build this out. And for us, podcasting is a big part of that. Discord is the place where people are congregating now for us. And like our community is growing there. And I think that however you define that, like a student success manager or a course, a community manager, mm-hmm. Or just like hopping on accountability calls directly with people. I think, like you mentioned, transformation is really the thing that you're selling. And to me these days, especially, like to drop someone off into Teachable and expect them to watch the 8 modules and achieve their thing is probably not going to cut it. The other thing is, like, from a business perspective, you forging a super strong relationship with these folks is really valuable to your business in the long run. Because you might have kind of basic piano that you're going to teach now, and then you're going to teach concert piano or jazz or whatever in the future. And if you have continued to nurture a relationship with your first customers, selling the second course or the third one is like so much easier. So it's like their success now plus their potential for kind of staying engaged with you in the future is enormous.
Yes. Yeah. And we haven't talked about community much, but that's a very important element too, because if you're taking an online course and you're watching videos from an instructor, it's like it's you and the instructor or whatever. But if you feel like you're going through it with other people, that just really raises your success rate from what I've seen. And you can, when done right, like that's I fought adding a community component for a while because I didn't want it to be more work. But the community is where they can interact with each other. And so we finally released community, and now they're interacting with each other for the first time. And it was this whole other component that was that helped increase student success.
Awesome stuff. Jacques, I think we're at time. Thank you so much for dropping all this knowledge and sharing kind of what you've gone through, really humbly from the beginning to kind of where you are now, which is like really successful 2 times with courses, which is really cool to see. I think we're going to have you back on to talk about community, and maybe like a 2.0 version of this. That would be really cool to see. Thank you all for listening and chiming in with questions. I hope this is really helpful. Again, the recording of this will be available in an email to you in about an hour, typically, from Demio, which is the platform that we're on here. But thanks everyone so much for chiming in. If you all have any questions, Sam has popped in a couple of links in the sidebar here to Jacques' podcast. Definitely check it out. And if you have any questions for any of us, you can just email us hello@castos.com. If it's a question for Jacques, we'll get it routed to him. And thank you all so much.
Yep. Thanks, Craig, and thanks for everyone for being here and being so interactive. It's been fun.
Cool. Jacques, this is going to kick us off when you click to leave, so I will catch you later.
All right, see ya.
Okay.